I'm Sam from Cultaholic.com and welcome to our predictions for WWE Backlash 2020. Now this time it is a non-title predictions contest, but we are returning to the prize format. So previously me and Jack won, well, we drew, so we both had to share £50 worth of scratch cards each. This prize this time, with this show being built around the greatest wrestling match ever, it's going to be built around the greatest night in ever for the winner. So that means if you win, you get to choose the greatest food, the greatest booze, and the greatest wrestling, and then it's all going to be live streamed. Your greatest evening ever, or your greatest night ever, yeah, your greatest night ever, live streamed on YouTube for everybody to watch. So first up, we've got Jeff Hardy versus Sheamus, and I think I'm going to have to go for Sheamus in this one. I just think it makes the most sense to, if they're going to keep doing this uncomfortable angle built around Jeff Hardy's real life past issues, then we should maybe call into question whether Jeff can still go, whether Jeff is able to do this. If Sheamus is going to keep up things like running people over in the car and framing Jeff for it, it just makes more sense for Sheamus to win here, put more heat on him, get Sheamus back over as a big horrible heel, because he's just been ripping on people for being short for the longest time, but now that's Mojo Rawley's job. But yeah, I think eventually we might have the blow off, say Extreme Rules, but for now, Sheamus needs to win.
I'm taking Shamu here because I think his return to WWE TV has been a little bit underwhelming, to say the least. I think that Gable was the wrong choice of first proper feud for him coming back in a rivalry centered around the fact that Gable wasn't as tall as other wrestlers. Great stuff, creative team. But I'm enjoying the Jeff Hardy storyline, and I think I might be in the minority here because a lot of people have said that they find it distasteful because it's centered around the real-life personal demons of Jeff Hardy, but I think often the best storylines in wrestling are centered around, or at least draw from, real life experiences. And we know that Jeff has had a lot of issues in the past with substance abuse and so on. So actually I think then borrowing from reality has been quite effective. My personal opinion, different strokes for different folks. I think Sheamus needs the win here. I'm enjoying the grizzled old vet big bully boy character, and I think this will go a little bit further. Will Jeff come out on top in the end? I'm not sure he will, but Sheamus is coming out on top on Sunday night.
Hey guys, Jack here, fresh off my correct prediction at NXT TakeOver in your house to the letter in that main event triple threat match. Absolutely unbelievable scenes. I'm going to get all of these Backlash predictions right as well, 100% of them. Take that to the bank. My first pick, what have I gotten myself into, is Sheamus. I think Sheamus is going to be Jeff Hardy here because I think the feud is still sort of in its infancy, and I think Jeff's still got a way to go before he finds redemption. So I'm going to go for Sheamus to strike the first blow. Maybe Sami Zayn will get involved if the whole red hair, red beard thing was a red herring, and then Jeff will get his redemption a little bit later down the line. Sheamus for the Backlash win.
I'm going for Sheamus in this one for the simple reason that you cannot have Sheamus do what he's done to Jeff Hardy and not have Jeff Hardy do something as equally as severe back to Sheamus. Who knows? Jeff Hardy might expose Sheamus as actually being the biggest Total Divas fan in the world. Now, there's nothing wrong with being a fan of Total Divas, of course, but once upon a time, of course, Sheamus did say, "Now we're not watching that show." So since we haven't seen Jeff Hardy do this monumental thing back to Sheamus, I think Sheamus will win, knock Jeff down even further as we then set off with Jeff Hardy then getting his redemption on Sheamus.
There is redemption coming for Jeff Hardy, but not right now. I think there is more of this story they're telling on SmackDown to play out. I think there is more characters that will be incorporated in it, and I think it will take shenanigans to do so, but I'm picking a win for Sheamus at Backlash.
Next up we have Alexa Bliss and Nikki Cross versus the IIconics versus Bayley and Sasha Banks, the current women's tag team champions, and this match is for those titles. To be honest, I think it just makes the absolute most sense to keep the belts with Bayley and Banks. They are fond of hot swapping these, but I think I finally feel like we're sort of coming to a time where they've realised we need to get serious with these, we need to give somebody a more sustained run, we need to do something interesting with it. So leave it on them two for now. You can even have those two explode and still remain champions, which should lead to some interesting dynamics, some interesting matches. But yeah, I think for now, they've just got the belts back. It doesn't make much sense to take it straight off them.
I'm taking Bayley and Sasha here. They've just won the belts, and although I expect to see them lose those titles sooner rather than later, this just feels a little bit too soon. However, do expect to see tensions continue to rise. I think there'll probably be a spot where it looks like Bayley's going to lose it for her team because she's being a selfish bastard, and Sasha saves the day, just turning that tension up a little bit further. I'd love to see the IIconics win this one, I really would, but unfortunately I think it's Sasha and Bayley, even though they don't need these belts for the storyline.
So I'm going to go for Bayley and Sasha Banks here. I think that may be seen as a bit of a foolhardy move because we know how much WWE love to mess with Bayley and Sasha, giving them belts, then just taking them off them straight away. However, I think that they're not going to do that here. I think Bayley and Sasha are going to retain, fall out a little bit later on, closer to SummerSlam. That's when they'll lose the belts, and then we'll get the big Sasha-Bayley dream rematch at the biggest party of the summer. Sasha and Bayley to retain for now.
The boss and hug connection will explode. There'll be blood, there'll be guts all over the ringside area, and it will cost WWE one hefty cleaning bill. But yes, finally Bayley will do just one too many things to pee off Sasha Banks once and for all. She will snap, she'll cost the Boss and Hug Connection the women's tag team titles, and Bayley and Sasha Banks will set themselves off on a feud that will last upwards of 7 years. Yes, in this prediction it's a massive shame that the women's tag team titles will be used as a bit of a prop. They deserve a hell of a lot better, but swooping in to pick up the pieces, I believe, will be the IIconics, who will get the reign they should have had last year. Bayley and Sasha, could argue, they should be giving them the reign they should have had last year, but now the IIconics, I reckon, will actually get the reign they should have had last year, filled with all the banter in the world. The IIconics for the win.
I'm picking Bayley and Sasha Banks to win this one. This coming Wednesday, Shotzi Blackheart and Tegan Nox get a shot at the tag champs on NXT, and I feel like they'll want to keep the belts on Bayley and Banks and take them to Wednesday night to pop a little bit of audience intrigue for those who don't normally watch on a Wednesday. So really, for mainly that reason, I'm picking Bayley and Sasha Banks to retain the women's tag team titles on Sunday.
Next up, we have Andrade versus Apollo Crews for Apollo Crews' United States Championship. And I am going to go with Apollo Crews because, again, like the last point, he's just won the belt. It'd be cool to put it on Andrade, but ultimately, why give it to Apollo? The US title is another one that I think could use a sustained run with somebody who's interesting for that belt. I think Apollo Crews is a very interesting in-ring talent. I think he can do a lot of different stuff, so it makes sense for me. You know, he's just got it. Keep it on him. Let him have some good matches with it.
I'm taking Apollo Crews here. Again, he's just won the title, so I don't expect to see him drop it to Andrade on Sunday night. And you know what? When he wins, I think he's going to smile loads, because apart from having good wrestling matches, apparently that's all Apollo Crews is allowed to do.
Apollo Crews defending the United States Championship against Andrade. I almost went for Andrade here. I thought that maybe we'd enter into a bit of a hot potato scenario with the US title, with it bouncing back and forth between various guys. But then I realized, no, Apollo's been presented really quite well on Raw since winning the title, so I think he's going to keep that here. Hopefully, there's a feud with Kevin Owens in the near future, maybe even a heel turn for Kevin Owens, who knows, can't quite decide if I want that or not. And hopefully Andrade, after this loss, will head up to the main event scene, but we'll see what happens.
Apollo Crews for the win here for the simple reason that he's just won the United States Champion. WWE are finally letting Apollo Crews show some real personality on the main roster on Monday Night Raw, and I reckon personally we're building towards a bigger, longer, juicier, sexier feud between Angel Garza and Andrade with Zelina Vega in the middle. So to get there, we need Apollo Crews to keep the United States Championship on Sunday at Backlash. Who knows? Zelina and Angel, maybe they get involved and that's how Apollo gets the win. But I would love to see Apollo Crews, with all of the banter in the world, getting a nice clean victory over somebody like Andrade, who is rather good, of course.
I'm enjoying the slow, steady dissolve of Vega's boys on Monday Night Raw, and I think it will continue this Sunday. I think that Garza's going to play a part in the finish, maybe some accidental, on purpose nonsense, and it will lead to Apollo Crews keeping his belt. So I'm picking Crews to remain as the United States Champion.
Next up, Miz and Morrison have dug themselves into a bit of a hole. They challenged Braun Strowman to a 2-on-1 handicap match. Braun isn't afraid of them, of course, because he's the size of like 6 of them combined. Last week they trashed his car, they messed with his protein powder so that it exploded like Mentos and Diet Coke. They did all sorts of awful things to Braun, so I think Braun is going to mow through them at record speed. Oh, I should probably add that this match is for the Universal Championship, so double no. Morrison and Miz are not winning this one.
I'm taking Miz and Morrison here because there's 2 of them and only 1 of Braun Strowman. Word life, this is basic mathematics. No, obviously, I'm taking Braun Strowman. They have no idea what to do with him, do they? This is the Universal title match. Mental. Not a pissing clue what is going on. So yeah, even though he's only got a 33.3% chance of winning at Backlash, Braun's obviously got this one.
Braun Strowman versus Miz and Morrison will be won by Braun Strowman. He is going to win this match. Don't know what else you want me to say. I mean, if Miz and Morrison win, I will be absolutely shocked so much. There's no way, is there? Braun Strowman's my pick, and I will be very shocked if the heels pick up a win.
Braun Strowman for the win on Sunday, but then the Fiend will eventually eat Braun Strowman alive. And who knows, maybe the Fiend shows up to Backlash on Sunday, sees the grounded down remains of The Miz and John Morrison, who will suffer a massive squash match defeat at the hands of Braun Strowman. Bray might sweep up the remains of The Miz and John Morrison. It'll be like a powder. It's going to be that bad. Then he might use The Miz and John Morrison as some garnish, as some lovely meaty rub on the carcass that will be Braun Strowman's when the Fiend eventually eats Braun Strowman. Who knows? Jomo might be the salt, The Miz might be the pepper, George will be the chips, but Braun will win on Sunday before going on to face the Fiend.
This feels a bit of a foregone conclusion for Braun Strowman. I think we're just killing time until Bray Wyatt / The Fiend makes another appearance. This will be a fun match between these guys, but I'm predicting Braun Strowman is going to come out on top over Miz and Morrison, remaining as the Universal Champion.
Next up, Nia Jax takes on Asuka for the Raw Women's Championship, and again, it's the problem with so many champions being crowned so close to a pay-per-view. You know that one of the belts is probably going to change hands, but at the same time, it's like they've just had it for like 2-3 weeks. I think Asuka is the better in-ring performer here, without a doubt. I think Asuka could go on to have some stronger matches than Nia. I'm not saying Nia can't be built up into a credible, heel or whatever they want to do with her, but I think for now it makes the most sense for it to stay, again, because it's only recent. Asuka.
I'm taking Asuka here, assuming that somehow Nia doesn't kill her in the ring. What?
Asuka versus Nia Jax. Asuka is who I'm going to go for, but that may be more of a head over heart decision because I really want Asuka to retain and I don't want to see Nia Jax as the champion. I think in her current state, the way that she's been going recently, fan response to her online, whether justified or not, doesn't really lead to a good recipe for a champion. Even if they are a heel, I think it's the wrong sort of heat. I think if Nia ever is going to be champion again, we need to wait for this all to cool down and for her to, sharpen up again in the ring, I think. Asuka needs to win this match. I really hope she does, and I think she will as well. I'm predicting Asuka, but it's a bit of a tentative one because WWE love to pull the rug sometimes, don't they? But it's got to be Asuka, hasn't it?
I'm going for an Asuka victory here, but there's a little part of my brain that is absolutely petrified that the star of the self-isolation era, Asuka, will be made to see stars spinning around her head after Nia Jax has thwacked her really, really hard. This is just something Nia Jax appears to do these days, and it's a massive bloody shame. But no, we're going for Asuka just because she's just got her hands on the Raw Women's Championship. I personally want to see Asuka face off against the likes of Bianca Belair with the title on the line, big matches like that. And to be honest with you, I just cannot see Nia Jax winning the title after what she's been through personally over the past few weeks, even though she has been built up quite brilliantly by hurting people but Asuka for the win here.
I don't think they could have made Nia Jax really look any more daft going into this. I mean, she got the closing moment on Raw, standing over Asuka, but I feel like every week she's gotten beaten up, and I feel like it's going to happen exactly the same at Backlash. I think Asuka has plans to face Charlotte going forward, so let's get over this irresistible force, shall we? Asuka to retain the title over Nia Jax.
Next up, we have Bobby Lashley taking on Drew McIntyre for the WWE Championship. I'm British, I'm not voting against Drew. See you later, Bobby. I'm sorry, but come on. Drew needs to be holding this belt back, like, up until the point that we can get back to, 10, 20,000 people in an arena. He deserves that. The first British champion, come on. Just don't even think about it.
I'm really enjoying Bobby Lashley right now. Far more than I ever have in WWE. A big part of that is his partnership with MVP. I think they're great together. Sorry, Leo Rush, but MVP is better. However, I can't bring myself to choose him. I just can't do it. Drew McIntyre feels like a champion, doesn't he? He feels like a proud, fighting champion. He's got everything. He's got all the charisma. He's great in the ring. He's got the look. He's got the lot. And I really like Bobby right now. And if it's going to happen, I think it's going to happen on Sunday night. But I just can't do it. I'm taking Drew.
The WWE title match, which I've seen many people online worry maybe a victory for Bobby Lashley over Drew, taking the belt from him. And I think you've kind of got to commend WWE's booking of this feud then, if that's the case, haven't you? That's what you want when there's a babyface champion as popular as Drew. You want real fear that he could lose that belt at the pay-per-view. I'm going to take back all that praise if Lashley actually does win, because that would be ludicrous and you can't be ending Drew's reign so soon. But I'm going to go for Drew. I'm going to have a little bit of faith, and I think this has been decently well done. Come on, Drew.
Finally, WWE have done a fantastic job of building up Bobby Lashley. This is something they should have done a couple of years ago. Are these the Backlash hooks? Lads, I want to see you on Sunday. I don't want to see you now. We're doing predictions. Be gone with you little cheeky scamps. Thank you. But yes, even though WWE have done a fantastic job of finally building up Bobby Lashley over the past few weeks, this is just a massive roadblock for Drew McIntyre to get through on his way to holding the WWE title aloft in front of a live crowd, something he deserves to experience. And more to that, I reckon Lana will get involved. She will cost Bobby Lashley the match. You're sort of keeping Bobby Lashley strong, I guess. Those two will finally get their big divorce. Bobby and MVP will go off and do their own thing and be bloody good at that thing as well. But Drew McIntyre, to retain his title.
It would be foolish to end the title reign of Drew McIntyre this early on. I know the ratings haven't been particularly in his favour, but that is nothing to do with Drew. There are so many other circumstances involved, and I don't think that the run stops here. I think they'll have a cracker of a match. They had one in Impact of similar greatness a few years back. I think this will top that, and I think it will end with Drew retaining the WWE Championship.
And finally, we have the greatest wrestling match ever. Randy Orton versus Edge. A lot of people saying that, it's got to be Randy. He needs to keep pushing Edge down. A lot of people saying, no, it's got to be Edge. He has to establish that he can still go in the ring and, all of that stuff that we know anyway. But he's got to get that storyline establishment. But I think it could end differently. So, they're calling it the greatest wrestling match ever, and no doubt in my mind, from everything I've read, the interviews where Edge thought it was going to be tongue-in-cheek, but then it turned out to be very serious. I think that they could use this, not expressly, the greatest wrestling match of all time for this purpose, but I think they could use this moniker in order to maybe poke fun a little bit at other promotions. So I'm thinking maybe we'll see a longer match, maybe a long form match in a New Japan style, and I think that maybe it'll end in a draw. That is my big scary prediction, because this can go horribly wrong, but I think it ends in something like a time limit draw. It's going to draw, and then both guys will not be able to resist going after one another again, and this allows us to extend the storyline without anything really happening. And with a time limit draw or something like that, you can have build, you can have a lot of length in the match, you can tell a big story, and so you can make it feel important. It doesn't have to feel like a hollow, meaningless draw. They can build and build and build and build and build and have people just kicking out finish after finish and nobody can put anybody away and then it's a draw. I think that naturally extends it. I think that's what's going to happen.
You know what? I think this match might turn out to be pretty damn good. Some may say the goodest match ever. I got Edge here because I don't want them to 50-50 book something that should have ended at WrestleMania. It's completely arse backwards, we all know that. Start with the last man standing match. Finish with the singles match. What the hell is going on here? Wrestling is so very silly. Yeah, I'm taking Edge. He needs to prove that he can still go. He can still do a wrestle. Do it for Christian and Beth Phoenix and Gangrel and Lita and Hulk Hogan, and most importantly, Edge, do it for us. We know you got it in your little buddy.
And the greatest match ever, the greatest show, Edge versus Randall Keith. In what is the stipulation of this match is that it's the greatest match ever, so it's probably going to be quite good, isn't it? I'm going to go for Randy Orton, just because Edge won at WrestleMania, Orton's going to get his win back, and they'll have a rubber match, possibly at SummerSlam. That's my logic. It's really simple, but I think that's what they're going to do with Randall picking up the dubious victory. As for how good the match is going to be, I think it'll be good. I think it'll be a really good match, but obviously it's going to seem disappointing because they build it as the greatest match ever, and it's never going to be. So why would you do that? I don't know. Randall Keith for the win, and I'm going to win this predictions contest. Cheers.
This is not the greatest match ever. No. This is just a tribute as what I thought WWE were doing when we started on the build to this greatest wrestling match ever this Sunday at Backlash. But after watching the build to this match and how serious it's been outside of Edge's Twitter, of course, he has taken the absolute Michael out of WWE's creative team, and more power to him, quite frankly. I reckon that actually going to try and do the greatest wrestling match ever. I personally think this will be a lovely throwback, a proper main event match from a WWE card lost somewhere in 1994. I hope you know what I mean by saying that, but I reckon someone somewhere will actually believe this is the greatest wrestling match ever, and as long as there's one, WWE will run with this fact. It might be Randy Orton's wife, it might be Beth Phoenix, it might just be Tommaso Ciampa, but with this entire thing being subjective, of course, if somebody says to you that Edge versus Randy Orton from Sunday's Backlash is the greatest match ever, all you can do is say, good for you, pal. That's your opinion. In my opinion, you're probably going to be wrong. But Edge for the win here, just so Edge can go off and face somebody else but Randy Orton. We don't want to see more Edge versus Randy Orton, do we? So hopefully Edge wins and goes and faces Aleister Black. Yeah.
Whilst I don't think it's possible to live up to the idea of the greatest wrestling match ever, I think Randy Orton is winning it, and it's going to go against that whole idea of this being a great wrestling match, because I think Randy Orton's going to win by being an arse. There's going to be some chicanery that leads to Orton winning, and then it levels them off one apiece, which means they can have one final match, maybe at SummerSlam, to complete the trilogy.
And those are our predictions for Backlash 2020. All the regular content will be coming, Adam will be streaming Backlash live, and the winner will get the greatest night in ever. Who do you think are going to be the big winners and losers? What do you think is going to be the gist of the greatest match ever? Let us know in the comments below.